Dennis Hall had a brief military career and then he joined financial services almost 40 years ago, initially working for a variety of different employers before starting Yellowtail Financial Planning, a fee-only financial planning focused firm.
You are listening to Wealthy Advisor Mindset Podcast, a show dedicated to helping financial advisors grow their AUM while enjoying a great quality of life by creating a high-performance mindset. Guiding you on this podcast is none other than Nina Cook, a seasoned mindset coach who has worked with hundreds of business owners over the last decade to dissolve all their self-sabotaging behaviors and habits to achieve their business goals so they can have a much bigger impact and make much more money. Throughout the show, we'll deliver actionable strategies to grow your practice more easily and quickly, while revealing the incredible possibilities that emerge when you tap into your best self. Ready for a breakthrough that amplifies your impact and profits? Let's dive in.
Dennis, such a pleasure to have you here. We had a good chat and I know you're really into mindset and the important role it's played in your life.
Hugely important, yes.
For our listeners, could you give us a brief journey of what's got you here so far and the role that your mindset has played in that journey?
I think if we cast our minds back 40 years ago, the financial services scene, particularly here in the UK, but I know that's probably replicated around the world, was very much a sales-driven culture. And I think all of my learnings 40 years ago were listening to the likes of, I suppose, early Tony Robbins and other sort of American sales evangelists. I found that they were telling me to do things that I really wasn't comfortable doing. It was not where I was going to be. I struggled as a financial advisor for so long, trying to turn myself into the proverbial sales machine, and I'm not a sales machine in that respect. So always thinking the problem was with me and struggling to find a way out of it and sitting with my own biases. Really, I had a lot of those. My entry into financial services was based on trying to do some good, having been a consumer beforehand and ripped off as so many people are, people knocking on your door trying to sell you products. So there were all kinds of things going on inside my head. When I started to get involved with what we had back then was the Institute of Financial Planning. They'd be known as certified financial planners in the US. And 20 plus years ago, meeting people with a slightly different mindset about what financial services was. This wasn't about, I suppose, some of the deeper work I've done subsequently, but it was just saying financial planning is where it's at, not shifting products or trying to get assets under management. So that was, I suppose, the first cultural shift that I met and embraced and thought, here's a group of like-minded individuals that at that time, in what was a very male, macho-dominated sales culture, felt a lot like sandal-wearing tree huggers. But I was really comfortable in that world of sandal-wearing tree huggers who wanted to do financial planning.
I'll ask you, Dennis, what is the mindset of financial planning versus the mindset of shifting products?
I think you're trying to step away from, look, give me your money. I mean, I think that when there's the kind of the pitch I have to an initial client that comes in is that the traditional financial advisor will ask you what you've got. And that client will present you with a problem. I've got a sum of money I want to do something with, or I've got these products. And you're instantly going into gap finding or product solutions or plugging gaps. Whereas I think the financial planner steps away from that and says, oh, that's important, and we'll get around to that in due time. But I need to understand about what your long-term objectives and goals are. What are some of the values that you have around that and some of the things that you want to do? And you start saying, let's focus on the outcome. And the outcome isn't what's going to happen in the next 3 to 5 years. The outcome is reaching that point of financial independence, whether that's in your 60s or any other time. And beyond. We want to make sure that you have a sustainable lifestyle. So let's just start crunching some numbers, and that will tell us what your money needs to be doing. and we can start looking at where it is today and seeing if it's in the right place and doing the right thing. In a way, you're working collaboratively with clients to help them understand what their end game is for their money and to get them involved because it's their plan, to the point that when you say, and this investment and this product solution fits your long-term needs, they get it, they understand it, they buy into it. And then when the stock markets do their thing, as they do from time to time, they don't wonder, why have I got these things and why am I panicking? Or I've got a chunk of money coming in, what should I do with it? It's kind of been pre-planned.
Got it. Okay, nice. So it's really looking at their life plan and making sure that they have enough money to be able to do all the things they want to do for themselves and their family.
Yes, definitely. And it's, you said it's their life plan, not my idea of what you should be buying today.
You said that back in the 40 years ago. So we're looking at mid-80s. You know, in the UK, London, it was the yuppie era, you know, champagne lunches, money seems to be sloshing around the financial system. Big changes were going on. So what made you think at that point about people like Tony Robbins and mindset? Why was that of interest to you? What pointed you in that direction?
I think
Were you looking at your mindset in the mid-80s?
he had a book that
Did it
came
come
out called
later?
Awaken the Giant Within.
Yes, yes.
So that was the first book that I read, and I was hooked by that first line, really, is just that he was an ordinary guy, well, seemingly on the face at that time. He just considered himself to be, I'm an ordinary guy and I'm trying to do some extraordinary things, and here's what I do. And it was just that training the mind to think in a different way. I'd come out of the military where I'd already seen myself go through some mind shifts and changes about the things. So the military career is Royal Marine Commandos. So, you know, one of those people that at the time that I was going through it, only about 3 people who ever applied to become a Royal Marine Commando ever got the Green Beret. You know, it's a really sort of elitist. It's not SAS and it's not SBS, but it's that next level below.
Whoa.
And I'd come out of being just an ordinary kid at school and suddenly finding mussels growing on top of mussels and going out to Norway and living in sub-freezing Arctic temperatures, digging snow holes, skiing long distances with incredibly heavy weights on your back and all, and thinking I would never have imagined I would do that. And then going to war, that's the Falklands era, and going through that in a relatively short period compared to the conflicts our armed forces go through today. But again, seeing that the things, your self-limiting beliefs, if you're forced to confront those and push yourself through those, you can see that you can do things that you never thought imaginable. And so then I came out of that very physical military world, and spent about 10 years there, into a world that I didn't understand and didn't know, but thinking that if other people have done that and they're beginning to write, that's the era of the self-help book coming through, I want to read those and see how I could improve myself and see if I can do something in a different world to become better. So it's a start. Is it? And inquisitive for that kind of thing, really.
No, that's absolutely fascinating. And you said that when you were in the army, then you suddenly started doing things which you never thought you could do. So your identity started changing, how you saw yourself, your self-image, your internal self-image about you started changing.
It did.
How was that for you when you suddenly thought, wow, I can do this? Did that suddenly make you feel that you could do anything? Did that give you the confidence to try different things in life? Did it make you feel you could take bigger risks than before?
Definitely take bigger risks. I used to wander around employers having said, well, having been in the Marines and having been to war, the worst case scenario in that environment is you're going to get killed. If I go to an employer and I'm working, the worst case scenario is you're going to fire me. Well, I'll just go and get another job. So therefore, you begin to take different risks, or you begin to approach it slightly differently from somebody who may just be protecting their 9 to 5 environment. I don't care about a 9 to 5 environment. I never have. I don't have to have 6 weeks holiday a year or whatever it happens to be prescribed. And if I've got something I want to do, just go and try it. And if it doesn't work out, what's the worst that can happen? And that's what I kind of look at these days. What's the worst that can happen? Okay, as I've got a bit older, I've become a little more risk averse, perhaps, because I have less time to recover from my losses. But I would, I'm quite excited by new challenges all the time.
Wonderful. And financial advisors who are listening, when they feel that their business isn't growing as they want it to grow, or they feel that they're not able to get the clients that they want to get, and their assets under management aren't growing as their goals compared to what the goals they've set themselves, where do you think that they tend to get stuck in their head? What are the big challenges for them in their thinking?
I think there's more than one answer to that. I think they've got to be very true to themselves about what they want. It's very easy to listen to the wider community about what they think is an appropriate size of business to have, the assets under management, the types of clients. But if you're constantly working to somebody else's agenda rather than what you're comfortable with, you'll always find yourself in a pickle. So I think, step back and say, why am I doing this in the first place? And what is it that I'm trying to do? What problems am I trying to solve and for which people? And that might help you niche down so that you become an expert in your field. Has really helped me. But it's difficult when you're at the start of your career and you think that anything that breathes, that walks through the door, you've got to take on as a client. You haven't. But I do appreciate we do need to earn money to live and such like. That's the first part. The second one is to, I suppose, constantly question whether the way that we're thinking is serving us well at that point. I've met an awful lot of people that have very fixed views that they hold very firmly and never change. And I think I might have been one of those people until I started working with coaches and counselors, perhaps, who could help me see how that mindset wasn't helping me in the long run. So I have very firm views, but they're quite loosely held. Because if somebody presents a better version of the world or a different explanation for what's going on, I want to be open-minded enough to look at it. And if it's better than the version that I'm hanging on to, I want to be grown up enough to change, mature enough, and to have a flexible enough mind to say, yeah, you presented me with different and better evidence for the view that I'm currently holding. Time to change.
Is being open-minded enough to be able to listen to a different point of view.
Yeah.
I know what you mean, because we tend to read the newspapers, listen to the podcasts, etc., that agree with our views, because then we embed them down even more. We say we're right because so-and-so is agreeing with me.
Yeah. I can listen to the alternative side and I can agree with some of the things that they say, because not everyone is 100% right and not everyone really is
Exactly.
100% wrong.
Yes.
And I think that as an advisor, we probably sit reasonably central, maybe slightly right-leaning, very slightly, but I think most people I talk to are quite centrist. And you have to accept that there are people that we might be serving and advising that have slightly different views. So you have to step back and find out why they hold those views, what's led them to get there. And if you've got a very closed, firm, rigid mind, that won't happen. And
The quality of listening is a curiosity to find out what it is that they're thinking and believing and what evidence they have. And when you go with curiosity, as when you're talking to a client or prospect, if you can be curious about their life that they want and ask questions and all of that without bringing in your views about what they should be doing straight away, It's that openness of listening, isn't it? It's leaning in.
It is. And that was a piece of work that I did. You can work with professionals, I think, to show you what your thinking style is and what your blinkers are, because it's part of you. You don't see it. You think you're walking into a room with a very open mind and without any preconceptions about what's going on. But boy, have I found out that that's not the case. And it's a huge effort, actually, recognize the filters that I might have on my eyeglasses and to try and remove them. And it's hard work. But when you do that, the conversations with clients, I find, are better. And you can begin to see things from their perspective. That helps you present other evidence to them in a way that they will be open to. You learn a new set of skills without you just bleating and say, well, my view of the world is right. And it's, because I've been studying this for so long, it's just one form of right.
Yes, and everything's very nuanced. I mean, things aren't black or white, right or wrong. There are everything in between as well. You said you've done some self-help work, so personal development in terms of, books and coaches and counseling, etc. I mean, you talked about limiting beliefs and dissolving the ones which aren't helpful. What have been your big breakthroughs in all the work that you've done on yourself? What's been the significant transformational things that you've learned about yourself and how you look at yourself and life and how you live your life?
There have been several. I think the first one was just as life coaching was becoming a buzzword around the late 90s. And there was a life coach who used to write in the Sunday Times. And I've forgotten her name, but I looked her up in the 90s. I thought, I want a bit of this life coaching, but I don't want just any old life coach. I want the one that writes in the Sunday Times. So I found out and I made contact. This is before the days of internet, I suppose, in any meaningful way. And I asked her to become my coach. And it was an interesting experience because initially it was all very superficial. What do you want help with? I want help with my business. I eventually discovered that I wasn't telling her the truth. I was presenting to her what I wanted her to see in me. So it was never going to work. And I've had this epiphany a few times in my life, but the problems I was giving her were the superficial ones. They were the effects rather than the cause. And at one point she said, we're skirting over things. What's the real issue here? Back then I'd had a failed relationship issue and it was messing with my mind. I said, well, I've got this problem with this ex, basically. I can't get over this ex. She said, okay, let's deal with this. And she said, I'm going to deal with this over the next 3 sessions. And it took 2, basically. She asked me a question. And I've used versions of this question as I go along. Describe the perfect relationship that you want to be. Or it's either that or describe this person. Describe this person. And I wrote out, I thought was good about it. And I thought, well, I'll be honest, there's some things that are not so great, but this is the person. Describe your ideal relationship that you want with this person. I've described it. And then describe the person you have to be to attract that kind of person in that kind of relationship. And I thought, well, it isn't me, is it? It isn't the person I am right now. And I could see that immediately. And so I've used that for people who have got difficult problems at work, difficult problems at home, difficult problems if they're trying to build businesses with people. And you say, well, there are 3 components of it. There's the business you want, there's the home life you want, there's the other person, and there's you. And actually, there's only one of those people you can change, really. And if you can't change you, maybe it's the wrong fit. And I just saw that for me. I could let go of that relationship instantly, and my life changed.
Amazing. So how would you apply them to a business? What would you ask that business owner?
Well, I have some employees and not everybody works out here. And sometimes people are, yeah, here's how I want the business to look like, guys. Here's what I want the business to look like. And I'm the business owner. Here I am showing up. This is what I'm going to be. And here's what I want you to look like. Or you can ask the same questions of yourself. I'm coming into work in this environment. Here's what it looks like. What have I got to do to fit in here? And do I want to fit in here? But if I don't, time to go. If I do, time to change. And it's a bit black and white.
Yeah.
They're good tools if someone's getting some difficulty.
So what you're really saying is that the change is in our thinking. It's about attitude, isn't it?
It is. I'm one of those people that live inside my head a lot. I don't use headphones when I go jogging or go for a run. I'm just constant thinking all the time. But surprises me, there are people out there that don't have internal conversations, but so many people these days are driven by other people's agendas because they're downloading podcasts to listen to, they're downloading music to listen to, they're talking on the phone to somebody else. Where's the quiet time for you to listen to your own thoughts and then go and find out what you need to help you marshal those thoughts or change them or shift them? There's just too many external influences coming in before we've had time to talk to ourselves internally.
Yes. And we do have an internal conversation going on all the time. And the internal conversation tends to be the same type of chat every day. We can be complaining about people or situations. We can be feeling like the victim in certain things. We'll be going back over past memories where we're triggered about certain negative ways. We could be worrying about the future. So we have an internal dialogue, but often it's not healthy or productive.
No.
And it's not aligned up with the goals that we want in life. It's actually counterproductive to the goals that we want in life because we keep telling ourselves, that's too hard. It's too difficult for me. I'll never be able to do that. So it's really important to listen to our internal dialogue and figure out, is this going to take me to my goals or is it going to take me away from my goals? And if you're in a dialogue is going to take you away from your goals, then you need to change that inner dialogue.
You do. Yes. Is this helping me thinking like this, acting like this? And I think very often we hang on to our traits and behaviors because they're comfortable, even if we don't like them.
And it's all we know. It's all we know. I mean, if you say, okay, well, think, about your business in this way where you can get your goals, you can work with clients that you love working with, you can have this lifestyle. But for some people, it's really hard to think that because they've never experienced it. So how do you get into that mind frame if you've never experienced that? All you've experienced is this situation. As you said, there is work to do to change your thinking and your thoughts, which give you different results in life.
And I believe there are very few people who can do that alone. And if you look at most professionals who are trying to excel at whatever they're doing, sports people, actors or whatever, they're working with coaches, people who can help them. So we hear a lot about sports people, for example, who are working with people who can help them visualize outcomes, who can help them think better, who get into the locker room and start altering mindsets and groupthink and all of those things. And yet here we are sometimes in business and we think we can do this on our own and we don't need any help. But I've consulted with so many different types of coach, behavioral coach, mind coaches, occasionally a bit of therapy, not because I think there's something wrong with me mentally, but there are some great tools out there that can help me see how a particular style of thinking that I'm employing isn't helping me. And I really do want the best outcome I can get for myself. Sometimes the journey is painful. I want to hold hands with somebody along the way. Maybe someone who's been through that before or has seen that through with other people. That's kind of what you get when you're in training within the Marines. Hundreds and hundreds of people have done all of these things before. And there's a training team that have seen all this before. So you're coming in as a raw, skinny young recruit thinking, how am I going to bulk up and do all of those things that are, it's beyond me. Don't worry, we've got you covered. And yeah, it's going to be painful along the way, but you emerge at the other end a completely different person. And I think the same happens throughout your life if you choose it to be. So you can always be a victim, or at least buffeted by life's circumstances, or operating to everybody else's agenda, or you can set your own agenda and then get somebody to help you implement that. You'd never go in and become a sports person. Never mind the mindset. You've got to do the physical work to get that ability, to improve that ability. So the same thing happens in business. The same thing happens in relationships. The same thing happens in everything you're doing. You've got to acquire and develop those skills. And, I'm very happy to piggyback on the back of other people because they'll have been there before.
Yeah, it's so true. Coaches, I think they give you three very valuable things. They give you the objective outside view so they can look at the blind spots and find them very easily. They give you expert guidance because they have the tools to help you to create those changes. And they give you accountability because, as you said, doing on your own is really difficult and it's so easy to be distracted. So I'll put it to one side and come back to it. And it's staying on track. Mindset is, for me, is a daily activity. All my clients have a daily mindset practice that we build together. It's constantly keeping an eye on your thinking. So it doesn't just stray off and cause problems for you in life. It directs and dictates the results you get in your life. My favorite question to ask my guests, which is, what's the biggest lesson that life has taught you so far?
Wow. God. That's a very simple question, but it's really hard to answer. I suppose with the benefit of hindsight, the journey you think you're on is probably not the real journey. I look back at every decade of my life and it is completely different to how I thought it was going to be. Even though I set out with the intention of getting that done, something else has happened along the way that has completely changed it. And it has invariably always ended up better than I could have ever imagined. So I'm having a great life, and it's got better with every passing decade, but it doesn't come without a bit of work.
Yeah, that's a great lesson. So you have the gratitude and the awareness to know this is a great life instead of complaining about the bits which aren't quite perfect.
Look, if it's all gone wrong, it's my fault. Now, there's the lesson. Actually, I'm responsible
Yeah.
for virtually everything that happens in my life. So I can choose to get out of that situation.
Amazing.
I'm in control all the time.
Yeah. And that feeling of knowing you're in control, that's very powerful.
Yeah. Because I get to choose how I react.
Yeah. Wonderful. So how can our listeners find out more about you and the incredible work that you do?
So the business has a website, yellowtail.co.uk. Yellowtail as in the fish. And with a colleague, Sarah, we have a fairly regular podcast called The Century Plan, which I think is available. I don't get involved in disseminating of that. I just turn up and talk a bit like I do now. There's a book out there somewhere called Who Will It Hurt When I Die? And I'm about to write another one. So yeah, I'm out and about here and there. Really want to find me, they will.
Thank you so much. I love your passion about mindset. And thank you for sharing all your very valuable experiences and expertise on this subject. For everyone who's been listening, thank you so much for joining us. Until next time, bye-bye for now.
I hope you enjoyed the episode today on the Wealthy Advisor Mindset. Make sure to hit subscribe on your chosen platform to get notifications on upcoming episodes. If this episode made you think of someone who you think would benefit from listening to it, then go ahead, take a screenshot, and share this episode with them, or post it on your social media to share with your friends and colleagues. You can catch the show notes for this episode and any mentioned links in the description. If you are a financial advisor who is struggling to grow your AUM and profits while creating a great work-life balance, and you know it's because your mindset is stopping you, or you have a specific challenge in mind that you would love Nina's feedback on, go to chatswithnina.org and grab a time that works best for you. We'd love to see if we can help you. Once again, it's chatswithnina.org. We will see you in the next episode.